welcome you all today to the fortnightly symposium of our In Tandem Research Club. Before we begin the session, I'd like to request everyone to observe a minute of silence for Dr. Bhumika. Let us all take a minute to pray for her peace and justice. Thank you all, and let us hope that she gets the justice that she deserves. Let us come back to our session today. The theme for the academic year 2024-2025 is conflict, peace, reconciliation, and planetary well-being. A timely topic for the current scenario, I believe. And today, we've gathered here to explore and discuss on a particular topic, post-Holocaust peace dialogues. And we have an expert in this field, Dr. Laura Dameris Chellajothi, Associate Professor, Department of English, School of English and Other Foreign Languages, Bharathidasan University, Tiruchirappalli. She has an extensive background in Holocaust studies, women's life writing, Bhaktian poetics, linguistics, and translation. And she's also presented various papers on this. And Dr. Laura's research area is Holocaust studies, specializing on the narratives of women. Today, Dr. Laura will address on the topic narrating and negotiating the post-Holocaust, which will be about the complex process that came after Holocaust in repatriating, rebuilding, and also bringing the perpetrators to justice. An apt topic today while we talk about justice. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Dr. Laura as she takes the meet to you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Ms. Nivedita, for your kind words of introduction. And I would also like to thank Dr. Preeti Srinivasan for having asked me to present for today's session. Actually, I'm happy that I am here to do on post-Holocaust because, my expertise stops with Holocaust. And so I have not read much. So thanks to Dr. Dr. Preeti's insistence that I started reading a lot on post-Holocaust. Again, I feel I will not do enough justice to the entire spectrum of post-Holocaust. Before starting into post-Holocaust, there are some students here, so I would just, in a very, very brief nutshell, state-sponsored the murder of 6 million Jews. And Europe had 12 million Jews at that point of time, and out of that, 6 million were slaughtered as sheep to slaughter. They were slaughtered. Some were slaughtered in their own places where they lived. And when I said it was done by Hitler, the Nazi government, it doesn't mean that it is only in Germany alone. It was between the time World War and Second World War and the Hitler's Germany had a very bitter defeat in First World War, and Hitler wanted to redeem the pride of the Germans, and that is when he brought in the dialect, the discourse of the master race, the Aryan, and so they thought the Jews were the misfortune. And not only that, he wanted their money, he wanted their lands, and whatnot. And not only were the Jews in Germany were targeted, but the Jews across Europe were targeted. Hungary, Romania, France, Austria, Denmark, Netherlands, all these nations, there was a huge slaughter, and it was surprising that the slaughter happened only from 1939 to 45. So it's a big story. So let us, and the World War began, and the World War ended when the Allies came into they came into Germany. The D-Day, the armistice, if we know history, we will know something about that. So that is when the post-Holocaust era starts. In 1945, when the Allies come in, and then you have the post-Holocaust era coming in. Are you presenting the slide, Jaya Prabaa? You can come to the
face an issue, ma'am. I'll resolve it in a minute. Kindly give me a minute.
Okay. Okay. So this is the scenario. So now Hitler commits suicide, and the entire machinery of the SS, the Nazi party, everything collapses. And the Auschwitz they also had a lot of concentration camps. It was, I'll just put it very briefly to you. How did they manage to kill 60 lakh Jews? As I said, some of them were killed, they were liquidated in their hometowns, and some were taken to concentration camps. The concentration camps were nothing but huge slaughterhouses where the people will be sent into gas chambers where they will be gassed. It was the Zyklon B gas it was used, in which the death will be very, very quick, and at the same time, the base of the concentration camps were removable. It just fell down to a furnace, which burnt all the dead bodies to cinder, and then the ashes were collected. And the ashes actually were used as fertilizers through the fields of Germany. So it was a very, very it defies imagination if you even think about it. So it was a very, very big trauma for them. It's a collective trauma for the nationhood. Because nationhood is quite a problematic word. I will come to it later, because Jews did not have a homeland. They were living as communities in Europe, and as communities they had their own religious laws, they had their own dietary laws. They did not integrate with the population, with other countries, other people, and that was a big problem for them. Yeah, can you go to the first slide, please? So the next, what happens from 1945 is when Jews were the allies. The allies means American army and the Soviet army. They came and they liberated Auschwitz camp, one of the biggest camps, concentration camps that was set in Poland. And not only that, there were other camps where also all the prisoners were freed. But now there is a problem. All the prisoners were free, but they had nowhere to go. Soon after the Holocaust, some of the Jews, they from Poland, they thought they will go back to Poland. So when they went to reclaim their property, they were murdered in cold blood. So the survivors, when they returned to their own land, they were also murdered. So there was nowhere else to go. Jaya Prabaa, can you present, or are you asking? One second. I can try, but I have a problem with my connection. So,
Ma'am, I couldn't actually connect because I have some system issue.
Okay, it's okay.
I couldn't check.
It's okay. I have sent it already to 2 people. I think I'll just start sharing my own. If it doesn't work, then I think I should ask Satyasilan to share. Can you see?
Yes, that's fine. Yes, it's
slide?
working.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I have structured my lecture into 4 phases that will be negotiating and narrating the post-Holocaust through justice. So there were also trials that happened, and through reparation and restitution, through writing and through memorialization. Before going into walking you through this 4 phases post-Holocaust, I thought I will just tell you what happened in between. Because they were in a no person's land, they could not, they did not have a homeland. You know, all the countries where Jews were brought, all these countries, they did not want them. They did not welcome them. It was very horrific because when they went back to their own towns, the other people were using their own furniture. They were using even their tablecloth. But when they came in, they were had the impunity to kill them, and so they had to come back to the displaced persons camp. So they were called DPs. There were a lot of displaced persons camp, and in 1946 there were 250,000 DPs. These are the survivors of Holocaust. They wanted to emigrate to Palestine, which was then under the control of British mandate, or they wanted to emigrate to US. US was seemingly getting quite friendly with them, but both of them did not allow them. The British, there was this Exodus 1947 was a ship, and this was a ship full of survivors, you know, all bedraggled survivors. But when it reached the port of Palestine, the British denied entry, and you can see pictures where British soldiers forcibly taking all the DPs back into the ship, and they had to return to Cyprus, another displaced camp which was there in Egypt. So, and US also had a strict emigration quota, so they could only take in 41,000 per year. But here you have 250,000 Jewish displaced persons. So for them, the trauma of Holocaust is still there. And now they are again in an extended trauma where they have to live from 1945 to 1952 in their camps. And these facilities now, you know, after the World War, you had United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration. They took over. And these facilities were administered by them. And Earl Harrison reported, he came and visited, and he reported President Harry Truman was then the president. Roosevelt had just died. And he was the one who recommended resettlement. You know, these people had no home and there were no relatives. Everything was totally destroyed. And that is when US Congress passed the Displaced Persons Act. So 68,000 Jews emigrated to US. But in May 1948, by an act of UN, the Israel as a state as a nation was established. And so immediately, as soon as Israel was established, 170,000 emigrated by 1953. So only by 1953, the Jews had a place where they can call their own. So they were, but then the scars are still too many. And that is one reason, you know, when I think of peace, Holocaust peace, you know, it is something which is not a simple peace, you know, two children fighting and getting having peace at the end. It's not like that, but it is a peace for which you know they had to really paid a very, very heavy price. 60 lakh people died, and then they have to rebuild their lives. But then at the same time, the Jews also have happened, and that is what you see a very, very documentation, a clear documentation of all that has happened. Even when they were living in the ghetto, the Shabbat, Oneg Shabbat, Emanuel Ringelblum's archives, they were there, they buried there in the ghettos. And then even after when they came from the camps, they were still writing. So they never forgot, you know, they never forgot, because the one word that they have heard together is called Zakor. Zakor means remember in Hebrew. So they remembered, and not only that, soon after the 1945, when US and British Army, French Army, they went and saw the carnage that has happened. They also set up something called International Military Tribunal. So in August 1945, Britain, France and Soviet Union and US, they all signed London Agreement. that all the Nazi murderers will be brought into trial. They will be brought into trial. If you are a student of Holocaust, you will be quite surprised because when Hitler started his pogrom, the first thing he did was he took away the citizenship rights of Jews first in Germany, and that happened in Nuremberg. Nuremberg was a place where the Nuremberg Code happened. Nuremberg Code is where the Jews were, the law which enacted was all Jews were not considered the citizens of the country anymore. So naturally, all those who were very, very highly ranked, they all lost their job. If I tell you one name, you will understand how they lost their job. For example, Einstein. Einstein was the number one scientist. He was in Germany. And he lost his job. He had actually come to US for a conference and his colleagues will not allow him go back. If he had come back, he would have died. And Freud escaped to UK, so he survived. But all these people, overnight they lost their status as citizens. And so you see, Nuremberg ironically was that place where first all these dehumanization, these citizenship laws happened. But the IMT, this is a kind of a natural justice. The International Tribunal happened in Nuremberg in Germany, where the first trial happened with 22 major German war criminals. All these generals who were killing them now became war criminals. But many escaped, though 22 is such a small number when you compare to the atrocities and the murders committed by Germans. So only 22 war criminals were there. And the defendants were charged with conspiracy. So these were the types of crimes with which they were charged. So crimes against peace, war crimes, crimes against humanities. From here only you have the charter that is created when war crimes against nations comes into being. And these trials also became a foundation for new developments in international law. So the first Nuremberg trial happened in 1945. According to this path of justice, all the trials which happened happened not only in Germany, but it happened in Poland. It also happened in Krakow, in 2 or 3 places in Poland, not just in one place. The trial was in Auschwitz. The trial happened in Poland, Krakow, and even in so many other countries, all the nations where Nazis had killed Jews. So, but the first Nuremberg trial in 12 were sentenced to death by hanging, and the second trial was by 1946 and 1947. Between this, you had Jews settling in 1948 in Israel, but they are the ones who went hunting for the big names. They went they are also called Nazi hunters. The Nazi, those who escaped, they flew to Brazil. Brazil and Argentina gave them safe spaces. The atrocities committed were horrendous. I'm sure if you are not shocked enough, you will be shocked enough when Ms. Jaya Prabaa presents her paper, because the medical experiments that they did and the unimaginable horrors committed on the body. But these people ran away. But there was one person who was in Argentina, and the team of people went and captured him, Adolf Eichmann. Eichmann's trial captured headlines over the world. I'll come back to Eichmann's trial. Person who was the logistics person behind the deportation, because it is not an easy task to bring 1.1 million Jews to one place. So if you have not seen anything, I would just suggest that you see 1 or 2 or 3 clippings of Holocaust on the YouTube. You have enough and more, where you see cattle cars being people being shut in cattle cars and deported. Most of them, the old people died because they had 4 or 5 days without water and food. Old people died, and if you read some of the instances in the night, a father and son fighting for a piece of bread which nobody could eat, but they both die. These are stories after stories you will have, and all these deportations were masterminded by an Eichmann, Adolf Eichmann, and he had escaped actually to Argentina. So he went, he was searched, and one of the main persons who searched and brought him to book was Simon